Hi, today I've been asked to do a little talk on Luke chapter 8 verses 40 to 56 in the NRSV Bible that we use. That's got a title which is A Girl Restored to Life and a Woman Healed, and it goes like this. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. Just then there came a man named Jairus, leader of the synagogue. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years old who was dying. As he went, the crowds pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years, and though she had spent all she had on doctors, no one could cure her. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his clothes, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. Then Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" They all denied it. Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and press in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I noticed that power had gone out of me." When the woman saw that she could not remain hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher any longer." When Jesus heard this, he replied, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be saved." When he came to the house, he did not allow anyone to enter with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. They were all weeping and wailing for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and called out, "Child, get up." Her spirit returned, and she got up at once. Then he directed them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astounded, but he ordered them to tell no one what had happened. Image is everything now, isn't it? Everybody wants to look good. If you're a leader in business or in politics, you want to be seen with the right people, because if you hang around with the powerful people and the popular people, then that's going to make you look good too, isn't it? Well, Jesus and his followers turn up to this town, and this huge crowd is there to meet them. But in front of everybody there, this guy called Jairus literally throws himself at Jesus' feet, almost like an act of worship, and he begs Jesus to heal his dying daughter. Now, Jairus isn't actually his real name, something that Luke has made up. It means enlightened one. So the author of Luke's Gospel is introducing somebody who was really an educated and respected leader of that community. Now, if I were the PR manager for Team Jesus, I'd be reveling in this. I mean, what a photo opportunity. If Jesus heals this guy's little girl, he's just won over a really high-profile local figure. The crowd will love them. It'll make front page of the Echo, and their ratings will go through the roof. So, weaving their way through the crowd, off they all go to Jairus' house. But then something unexpected happens. All of a sudden, Jesus stops and says, "Who touched me?" His PR manager doesn't like this. It's not a priority. Move on and focus on Jairus. Now, I used to think that Jesus might have been angry that somebody touched him. But now, looking at this, I think he was just desperate to see who needed help, but who had been too scared to ask in front of everybody else the way that Jairus did. Well, this woman hesitantly comes forward and she admits it was her. Oh no, PR manager wouldn't like this now. This is getting really awkward. This woman doesn't even get a name in the text. We just hear that for 12 years she has been suffering from hemorrhages. That's a rather subtle and carefully phrased way of describing a medical condition that meant she's never going to have children. And according to Old Testament law, she was unclean. For 12 years of her life, everything she touched, everything she wore, everything she sat on, every bed she slept in, they all had to be cleaned every day. The law here was intended to maintain ritual purity and hygiene, to provide infection control even, but such was the lack of medical and scientific knowledge. These rules had become a religious means of ostracizing her. They were preventing her from getting married, of having her own family, even talking to anyone in the street. Nobody would go near her. The contrast between her and Jairus' daughter is huge. 12 years of suffering and isolation compared to 12 years of affluence within a caring family. 12 years of watching every hope you had for your life just slip away, compared to 12 years anticipating a life of privilege. 12 years an outcast and a nobody, compared to 12 years being the beloved daughter of a respected pillar of the community. I guess the crowd would have expected two things of Jesus. First, he would tell her off for touching him. It's incredibly bad manners to go around touching strangers, especially of the opposite sex. And in those days, a good Pharisee, for instance, wouldn't even talk to his own wife in public. This behaviour was shocking, not to mention wholly presumptuous. So they'd expect Jesus also to go straight away to wash himself, because if somebody unclean touches you, that makes you unclean too. That's kind of why you only associate with the right kind of people. But Jesus only has kindness for her. He calls her daughter. He refers to her as if she's in his own family. And he says, go in peace. Now, that's not a polite form of buzz off. It's a blessing. Peace, the Hebrew word is shalom. That means far more than just the absence of conflict. It means wholeness, living in the presence of the goodness of God. He also praises her for her faith. Now, it says here she touched the fringes of his clothes. Very specific that. It sounds a bit odd. But many a rabbi, a religious teacher back in those days, would wear a prayer shawl, something commanded in the book of Numbers, chapter 15. It was kind of a long scarfed edge with these blue fringes, and each fringe would stand for one of God's commandments. There is a prediction in the prophet Malachi that the Messiah, God's chosen one, would bring healing, literally it says, on the fringe of his clothes. Hence the belief that was doing the rounds then, that if you simply touched the fringe of the Messiah's clothing, you'd be healed. Now, faith does include knowledge and understanding, but the Greek word used in the New Testament for faith is pistis. It originally meant trust. This woman trusted Jesus. She believed he could help her, and she went to him for help. Now, after this, Jesus does go to Jairus' house, and he does heal Jairus' daughter. But he virtually empties the house before he does so. He just takes in her parents and his closest followers. There's no big, spectacular event in front of adoring crowds. No altar calls, no photo opportunity. Just quietly healing the girl, restoring her not just to life, but restoring to her parents all their hopes and their dreams, and making that family whole again. I guess we could spend eternity arguing over whether that little girl was really dead or just in a deep sleep or coma. And we can spend ages arguing on how on earth you can be healed by teaching a piece of clothing. There's plenty of debates, discussions and disagreements over all those things. If we just focus on those details, we run the risk of keeping these stories in the past. But I believe the main focus of Luke is to lead us into the future. So whether you believe these miracles literally happened, or you think it's a parable for a pre-scientific age, or just the whole thing makes your brain hurt, the question I think, the most important question I think, is what do we do now? I personally would love to get us thinking and talking and then maybe doing something about the way Jesus never rejects those who ask him for help. How his actions make people whole, again, mind, body and soul. How he restores them to membership of their communities and their families. And how in this story we see how he willingly helps not just the powerful, but also the weak, the popular and the unpopular, those who have confidence and those who don't. And he shows so wonderfully clearly how in the kingdom of God we are all equal. Amen.